Okay, I'm going to make about 12 of these today. This is a puzzle box that it's called a dice box, but I use the words and I've kind of sequenced the words in the order that they appear in the text. This has a little deadbolt in it. It's got an inner box, a layered box, and then it has a outside box that goes around it. This is the material that goes on the outside of it. And getting that going. Here are some of my jigs that I use. Everything that's related to this, I've just put a cable tie around it and holding it together. Some of it I don't really need anymore, but I just kept it with them. And of the 3 jigs, I basically will mount them up here on the tabletop, and I'll hold them down with pin nails, and then they'll also get some screws in them. The pin nails kind of tack them in, 23 gauge pin nails. I did vacuum the top so it's good and flat. And on my table I use 3/4 inch MDF that's nylon bolted to the T-tracks. Then on top of that I've glued another board on top of that, and I marked the holes with a 1/8 inch bit where these are. And of course these are recessed down in there. But anyway, then I use a piece of hardboard or cheap paneling or a piece of Luan or something as a waste board. And then I make most of my jigs out of 1/4 inch plywood, and that's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and start working on the parts that wrap around the inner box. This is kind of an inner box. I'm gonna start making them because they take the longest, and they're like 20 minutes, 25 minutes per deal. So I'll get that done, and while we're doing that, I'll probably glue up some walnut and some maple, and I've got enough for 8 boxes. I'm going to make 12, so I'm going to get some walnut and maple together and make some boxes for another 4 of these. So I have to glue up some more of that and get that together, and I'll probably do that while this is cutting. So it's a couple days before Thanksgiving. We just got back from the ocean and enjoy that trip at the Gulf for a couple weeks, and I'm back, anxious to be back in the shop. A little disorganized from transitioning stuff in and out, but oh well, that's part of my life in a small garage. Anyway, let's get to it. A few things. This is the panel that I'm getting ready to cut out. Got some of them already pre-cut over there, and of those panels I've also put a edge cut in the side of them so that I can hold them down with washers. And this gives me an idea of where it fits. And generally I mark the front of the jig where it goes. This is a piece of Lexan that I've made the clear box with. This is just a sample jig of what goes on. It's not a jig, it's just a cutout of those, and I have that stack cut out over there as well. So these are just really some parts that were cut out, so I kind of know what's going on. These are my 2 main jig boards. This one's for cutting out the top grat. This one's for cutting out the hardwood sides, so I'll get that a little bit later on and get to that. This is the one that we're going to be using mainly right now. This is 3 jigs, and I just rotate it. This is 3 box jigs. Yes, I made these in 9/27, 2023. And this is the front inside box joints. These are the slides, and I've written down in there what those are. And then these are the pockets. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing the pockets first, and I'll put this one into the jig and get that going on. And while we're talking about the CNC machine, need to keep a few tools around. A pair of just wire cutters, or we call them dikes at work, but I'm retired now, so we'll call them whatever. And a pair of needle nose, invaluable for pulling pin nails up. And I shoot pin nails directly into my waste board. And the way I find them is I just take a screwdriver or a wrench, like right there's one right there, and I'll hit that little bump, and then I'll pull that out, and then we'll be good to go. So sometimes the needle nose work the best. Other times there's just a 1/2 inch nail, and they vacuum up and everything. And every now and then I lose one. These things will prick you, and they'll make you almost cuss, but you don't want to do that. So, and then right in here, there's one in here I need to find. So we'll get that one out of there. It's down inside there, so it won't be consequence. But anyway, so I'll go over the top of that and fine tune that with my other hand as well so that I can find it. There it is right there. And just pry it up and get it out of there. A little bit of finagling, but not bad. I mean, when you sit there and think about it, I'll just use this little Makita Cordis 23 gauge pin downer, and nails are so cheap, and the tool is $180, but boy, it'll save itself in bits, being broken by hardware crashes and stuff. So anyway, so that's a few of the tools. This is a Shark HD 510. Got 25 by 25 by 7 travel on it. Had it almost a little about 4 years or so, and I've made literally hundreds of projects, 300 or 400 at least probably. And I'm getting ready to make 12 in this one batch here. Plaques, boxes, all kinds of boxes. Little bitty boxes like this one with the huge boxes, and I like the box joint jig because it gives me all kinds of storage options. There's quite a few tools that you'll find around here that are in storage boxes, and they keep it all working. So a little review, and then a lot of times if I can use a scrap for my cutouts, I'll use the scraps and put them to work. Right now I have all my blanks cut out for this project. They're in stacks, and I've used a table saw to mill a 1/8 inch groove in here for the washers, as they need to be flat. So anyway, there we go. Let's get started. All right, I just kind of laid this up here on my jig table. It's 24 by 24. It'll cut 25 by 25, so sometimes I'll have stuff overlay it, but this lets me flatten it, do whatever I want to. All my jig boards, I just line up the edges, and then this is my fences on that. So I've learned to take my project and draw an outer rim around the outside of the project, and that's holds it. And sometimes I'll throw a little herring bow, or whatever you call that, dog bow in it, or bone, or whatever you call that, in the end of it, to make it get out of there easier as you do this. So I'm going to shoot a couple of these, 3 or 4 of these Braddales in, hold it down. Then I'll come back in with my fenders and my screws that will hold these pieces in, and I'll get to cutting on them. All right, once you put the pin nails in there, put about 5 in there just around. I've marked my zeros, where my bit zeros in from the corner, and I always mark where the front of my jig is, not always, but most of the time. And then I mark the jigs, and then also mark the outside perimeters of the boards, what they need to be cut out on the table saw, so I can quickly look at it even without even loading the tool path. I don't really worry about the back end of it because I'm not cutting over there, so I just kind of let that flop. Just basically set around right in here, in this part here. And you can shake the table, it's not moving. Them little half inch nails, they hold it real well. Prying the shear this way is pretty good. You'd easily pry it up with just a flat screwdriver. I have this big long flat screwdriver right here, and that pries it up. Another thing is, if you have a USB port, use this. I've said this many times over, but that little USB plug that plugs in that will keep that from getting worn out and getting high connections in it. If this little cable goes bad, just buy a new cable. And I learned that same with power plugs. If you're constantly unplugging something, you need to bypass that friction point and move it out to where it's not part of the high dollar machine. So that's free. Anyway, there we go. Let's get to setting this one up. I have a couple of different options on there. I could put these down here and run a screw down through there and just kind of mark it with a pencil where it's at. That'll hold 10, 12 projects, no problem. You can just keep re-drilling. If you start getting them a little watered out, you can just put a longer drill in there, or just move it over just a little bit. The other method of doing this is just simply to take this, stick it in the slot, depending on what you're wanting to do. This works good for if you need holding that way or that kind of thing. So there we go there, and so let me get this secured in. Okay, I've used a little bit longer screws. These are fine when you're going straight down to the angle. A little bit short, so I went with a little bit longer screws. And again, I can go down to 1.5 inches or better. So I probably wouldn't go more than 1.5 inches. But anyway, I never have to. An inch is always plenty. And if you're getting or it doesn't hold down, you can just go with the new hole and mark it in there. A lot of times now I'll mark this hole with a marker so that I know exactly which hole it is, because sometimes I'll have another hole, and that way I can just reproduce 12 holes. And we're going to get this thing ready to cut out here. Let's go ahead and center this, and I'll mark the holes at the same time. All right, there's my bit on the very edge of the deal. My corner is a 0, So I've got, and I'd sometimes just turn my blade so that on a 2-flute bit, it'll give you that and that. And I'm using a downcut bit, and so it pushes chips down. It seems to make a cleaner cut. And on this bit here, I'm just using it to line up my point, and I'm going to put a 1/4 inch end mill in there. So let's go ahead and get the tool path loaded, and we'll see what we got going on with that. Okay, I've zeroed it in. I've loaded up the pockets, and I cut these about 3-4 weeks, a month ago. So I'm having to kind of remember what exactly it is I do. But anyway, it's all zeroed in, and I'm going to run this thing, and it's probably taking about 25 minutes to run. So we'll let her rip. Does that in a couple of passes, 1/4 inch bit. Probably have it doing that in maybe 3 passes. So it'll go around there, going down on the second cut. Sometimes I like to leave about an 1/8 inch to about 1/2 inch plywood. So let's turn it down there. Let me turn this light down, see if I can get that to go up a little bit better. Eyeball, but the camera's not picking and keeps up a good job on it. We'll leave it up high so I can see what's going on. Anyway, so we're going in there and cleaning that up, and it'll do those 5-6 pockets. Okay, 1/4 inch is run. Everything looks like it should be. Need to run the inner 1/8 inch bit to clean out the corners. Let's get that done. All right, after you pull that out of the machine, load another one up. Come over and look at it. This piece here will sometimes go flying, so you got to kind of watch it. The rest of them are still held in by tabs. They'll need to be cleaned up. All I do is I take an orbital bit. These are just about punch out. I'll take an orbital bit and an orbital sander with about 320 bit, just barely clean the edges off of them. And any of this ragged stuff, it cleans them up. Don't take about just a few seconds to kind of clean them up. Some of my squares are not all the way to the end, but it's not really a problem as the sander takes care of that stuff. Anyway, pieces are cut out of the tabs. Tabs work good on this 1/2 inch material and works good. I don't like using tabs on like the inner sides of it because you got to sand it, and it's just a time waster. If I need to, I can put a tack in there and it'll tack it down in that spot, and it'll keep that from moving around. So there that is. These have a through notch in them right there, and that allows the bolts to go all the way through several sections. And these are made a little different than the video on the YouTube. So I'm gonna go ahead and stack them up, and then I'm gonna laser all of them at the same time, so I don't have to do anything but just laser them. That'll save me some time. This one machine bit takes probably 20-25 minutes to get all that done, and with the 1/8 inch bit, it gets in the corners right here and cleans the corners up a little bit. I may not really need that cut, but it's in there either way. All right, while I was letting that do its job, about 30 minutes, I was able to take some old drawers, came out of a chest that my grandparents had, and take the drawers out and make them usable again. And I'll turn them into some of the outside of the boxes, like the cedar is over there. And I need to make 2 more, probably make them out of walnut, and get that going here in a little bit. I've got to go for a lunch date, and I'll go for lunch, and then I'll come back and get that stuff going. So there we go. While we're talking, I upgraded this DeWalt to this new Quiet Tech. It's like 50% quieter, and it is. I've been building other box around the other one. It lasted me 3 years or so, and it did fine, but this one doesn't even need a box around it. You can't even hear it. Fast cap reel, probably one of the best investments. I use that thing 100 times a day. Reel it out and reel it back in, and it's hooked up to the dust deputy there, and pretty well maintenance free other than just cleaning it every now and then I'll get trying to vacuum up long pieces and I'll get a little bit of a kink in the hose where I've done a repair on it, but that's easy enough to fix. But not very often. If I don't vacuum up the long pieces, I'm going in there on my next pocket. It's going to town, and after it gets done doing that, I'm probably going to select some walnut out of this back here to make a couple more of them springs with, or outside boxes. Okay, I shot a couple little nails in this thing here, and you can see they're kind of hard to get off of there. So there we go. Surprising what a couple little bit of those nails will do in holding that thing down. So anyway, so there it is. We'll load up another couple and be ready to go. All right. Well, I'm working on number 4. It'll be done in about 12 minutes. I did take off a couple hours for lunch. And now I'm coming up with these sides here, gluing them up. Got my oaks glued up. I've got to trim them up. Probably trim them all the same size when I get these glued up. And they're set, so these panels need to be 13 by 18 and a half. So. Okay, I'm ready to move on to the next operation. All I'll do is just pop this screw underneath there and pop it up. There's some of these little nails in around here. And all I do there is just pull them up like this. And up they come. And I only hit some on the sides. Right here's one here as well. And I thought I was using 1/2-inch nails in there, but I ended up using a little bit longer ones. So look at this board here, and I broke a bit on here, so I lost this little guy out of here and this guy out of here. So let's see where we're at as far as nails. Okay, no nails. I'll vacuum that off. I'll probably tack that thing back down in there and just keep using this for the cutout. All right, I just went around and put a tack in there. Shoots about 1-inch nail into that, which holds it down. Goes through a couple layers of that, and that keeps it to where you don't need it. And the ones that I'm using much pressure on, I'll put a screw in, like over here, to hold this down so it for sure doesn't slide around. A lot of times I'll put a screw over here and over here just to keep it from moving around. This is going to be cutting the box joints out. This is where the front inside boxes joints, and I've got 12 of these guys right here lined up for that, and there they are right there. So I'll take those, and maybe not those. I guess those go over there, huh? And that's for the flat panels. So let's get these right here out. They'll go right in here. So I'll get busy cutting them out. Those are the inside boxes. They'll look very similar to that right there with the little box joints on the ends of them. And we'll get those cutting out. They don't take very long. All right. Got my little dog bones in the corner, so I can put a pair of dikes in there. I've just put these little toggles in there to keep it from working up whenever it goes around there and cuts the box joints in it. So it's basically ready to cut out 12 of those little boxes, and we'll get that situated. We'll bring this down to the corner and see where we're set at now. All right, let's get that adjusted in. All right, we're on box joints, and we're cutting out the box joints. It's basically, there's only one file in there, and it shows the size of it. And you hit down, and it shows you it's the 1/8 inch end mill. So we'll click next, and we'll click start, and it'll start cutting them little critters out. So let's get her going. All right, I'm cutting out these box joints, and I've found that sometimes, depending on how you have it cut, that they sometimes don't need tabs. Generally, I don't put tabs on the box joints. I just don't like them to interfere. So what I'll often do will be use just a 23 gauge pin nailer, shoot a couple pins in there. Generally will keep it from twisting. 3 for sure will keep it from twisting, but all you need is just a couple of little pin nails in there. The CNC doesn't seem to be affected, the bits don't seem to be affected by the soft 23 gauge pin nails. And so you'll see a little later on in the video that I'm, flattening my board, and it's got 50, 60 pin nails in it, and makes no difference to the bits. So anyway, there we are. We're getting to that point, and we're going to move on to getting the rest of these cut out, and we should be in good shape to go. Okay, made quick work of those. Took 6 minutes to cut those out. So we'll get that going on. While it was cutting those out, I started cutting these out of the brackets. And all I'm really doing is taking a pair of those dikes and cutting those little tabs real quick, and then they just fall out, and then that pin comes in there. So that's kind of what I'm doing while the CNC is doing its work. Alright, this is the difference between a upcut and a downcut bit. This is a downcut bit, and this is a straight flute bit. And I bought a 1/8 inch straight flute, and it didn't do quite as neat a job cutting them out. The bottom is a little more ragged, not too bad. Anyway, a little bit of difference in the fuzzies. However, having said that, the cheap bit actually worked, but I ended up breaking the cheap flat bit, the 2 foot flat, and after about the 4th or 5th one, I may have been pushing it just a little hard, but I also ended up breaking a 1/8 inch bit. So started slowing them down towards the end of it and got a little bit cleaner cut, and the bit's still working, so we'll see. All right, that looks like that's what the guts for 12 these dice boxes. That's just the slide pockets. I've got 3 of the box joints being made. 9 more to make up. So they're cutting in. They take about 6 minutes. Got a couple of these and some oak here I'm going to work on. And secondary stages, get them ready for that over there. A couple wild cuts where the glue didn't quite stick in the laminations of the box. And they don't require a whole lot, so I just shoot a little glue and use a couple pins, 23 gauge pin nails, glue them down tight, and they come out pretty good. And they go back solid again. So in the process of running these other CNCs, I'll clean these up with 320 with a sander, clean them up, take all the burrs off them, get them where they're clean, be ready to glue up. The box joints, they just pretty well just need to be glued up and they come together. So that's kind of how that goes together there. And so yeah, there we go. Alright, well, them boxes have been getting cut out on the CNC. I've got 3 more yet to cut. They take 6 minutes apart. Then I'll sand these. And pretty much I just keep the CNC machine running over there. I'm going to be able to sand these all on this. And it's just a real light sanding. All I'm doing is taking the burrs off the edges of them and chamfering the edges just a hair and cleaning them up. And then I'll go over it with some 320 on the inside edges around in here, and probably file the grooves just a little bit. So that's what I'm doing while the machine's cutting. Alright, the next thing I do is I take the jig and turn it around, do the front of the slides, line up the corner, shot the nails in it, screwed it down. Then I'm putting each one of these in there just as just like that, just a friction fit. And then run the laser cut on the numbers only. And what that does is that's putting this on all these steps, so when it cuts out, I know which side's up and what number it is, because it gets kind of confusing when you got 6 of them and you've got 30 pieces. So this makes it easy. And yeah, I could use a marker and marker them up, but it's just as easy to put this down there and let the laser do it while I'm been over here resizing this down, sanding parts, and doing different things. Also stepped up to a little bit wider joiner. I went with this Grizzly 8-inch. I had a Delta. Standard Delta was just like this one, except it was a 6-inch. Had variable speed on it, but this has got the modified spiral head in it, which is just basically a two-edged cutter that you can rotate once, after the initial. And they're just a steel blade, so they do make a cutter, a carbide cutter for them. But anyway, that's there, and we'll see how it does. It cuts a lot quieter, a lot easier, a lot less noise, and very smooth. So it's doing a good job there, and the dust collection seems to work good on it. So there we go. I just need to rip them down, the rip fence, get the crosscut sled off there, and finish them up, get them ready to put in the jigs path for that side. And then after I get done lasering all these, I'll put them in there and we'll cut the slides out on the CNC. Okay, to get these to cut out nice, I'm putting a pin nail after I lasered them. Of course, I've got them all lasered. Then I take a pin nail and I put 3 shots in there. That keeps them from turning. These little clamps just keep the little plywood down into the slot. This keeps these from shifting, and that breaks bits and causes all kinds of problems. So, the 3 pins, it's basically easy enough. You just take a screwdriver and pry that up and then pull your little 1/2-inch brad nails out of there, and away you go. It takes not very long. So let me get that done. Okay, so basically pull all the nails out of there, swing my tabs out, and then put that in there. Sometimes I'll miss one like this one here, and I'll hit that with and then every now and then I have to vacuum it out. I mean, it's not so critical, so I'll probably vacuum out about every 5 or 6 times. So while the CNC's cutting that plywood, making on contour racket, I go ahead and just run glue all the way around all the fingers. So just run it over it, dry assemble it, and then lay it out flat, run over it, and then just assemble it. I'll put 3 clamps on it and hold it together. And I'll take a brush like this one here and go in there and clean the edges up on it. So let me get it together. Alright, there's 8 boxes, 9 boxes. I've got 3 more on there to glue up. There's 12 boxes here. And there's the slides. Got a couple more slides to cut out, so it's all coming together. Got some of my walnut sized up. I've got to surface it yet, and then put them back together. So it's coming along. Dumpster's getting full of parts, and there's my CNC. It's time to go eat lunch or early supper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There it is. All right there. All right, these are packs of slides. I got one in the CNC I have to pull out. Those are all the pockets for the slides. So basically I have all the parts just about on the inner side. They're my outsides, so it's coming together. And so there we go. Lots of fun. Well, there's the boxes glued up. There's the slides. There's the pockets. And it's coming along. Had a bit that went wild on me. And it made a hole in my jig board right in there. So I put some sawdust and some glue in there and fill it in. And then I'll flatten it. And we'll be good as new tomorrow. Alright, note to self. Next time you don't joint or surface these boards, or at least service them down to 5/8 of an inch, then you got to run this thing 10 times to flatten it out. I mean, that board had some pretty ragged boards in it. You can see right there. Of course, it's all now nice and flat right now, just perfectly flat. You can't feel any grooves in it, and it sounds out perfect like that. But you know, I'd be better off to go ahead and plane my boards down and get them right instead of just leaving them like that, because they're just a little bit too wide for my sander, and of course the grain's wrong for the planer. So there you have it. I could, I guess, rip it down the middle and run both sides through the planer and plane that way, but anyway, this one here is ready to cut out with the box joint and get it lined up and the V-grooving and all that good stuff. So guess I better get that done, huh? All right, I'm gonna run my first 7-inch piece of walnut through there. It's about 9 inches long, maybe 10 inches long, and we're gonna see how it does on this. All right, as with always, there's always a fix you have to do. Excuse me. And it's this piece right here. Mr. Alert, he, it wasn't Mr. Alert, it was Mr. Loyal. Mr. Loyal lost his tabs in the process and also had a bit come loose in the collet, and I know I tightened it up and it did it to me again, so I basically took the bit out of that collet and kind of marked that collet as being suspicious. Probably need to clean it and get some crud out of it or something, but anyway, so it did that. So I'm having to remake this piece here, and in my setup I basically just took the last template that fit in there in that box, and I was just able to move that over there. Then I laser burnt the box joint cut so that and I also used brass screws just in case. So now I'm going to V-carve it, and it's the first cut in all the patterns, so that makes it easy. I can just run the file and stop it when it's done cutting that part, and we'll get to it here. Well, what's nice about this is I got a nice alert. That ain't the one I need. I need on this, I think. Let's go there and look which one I need. Loyal. Loyal's the one I need. Loyal. Anyhow, I'm just going to cut a new board. Pull up 2 new boards, put them together. I'm going to join them down, get them down to about the right dimension and dimension them. And that will save me a lot of trouble. So I'm going to do that right now. This is my collector for the planer. It's not powered. It all runs off of the impeller, so I don't need any dust back out of that. And that does quite a bit of work, and it'll do quite a few boards before I have to go empty it. And so yeah, it's working pretty good there. And as long as these hold this down, we don't have any leaks. So every now and then I get surprised with a leak, but anyway, that's about the best I can do on that. I do like it being mobile. It makes it easier for me to handle, as these generate so much sawdust. So anyway, and it came out of that back corner. I'll probably vacuum that corner before I put them back in. And let's get to planing. Alright, I took this rapid fuse wood that's made by DAP, cures in 30 minutes, ready to plane, sand, and stain, and which is pretty nice. So I'll let that set out here and cure out, and then we'll get that back into the deal and carve a new piece, since I did the wrong one. Anyway, and there you go. So rapid fuse works real good. You can also use the fast cap accelerator with it, and between the two they make a great combination for that. Most of the time I'll use just a type bond wood glue, like what's over there on that cabinet or over there for the biggest part. And but I did make like 26 canteens, wooden canteens, out of maple, walnut, pine, fir, and oak. And this stuff held. I never had it ever fail, so it works good. I also like this shelf life on this is a lot better than just regular CA glue. This isn't a CA glue, but it's a type of CA glue, so the smell on it's a little bit tough, but you know, if you're working right over it, it'll make your eyes burn a little bit, so you want to use good air for it. But anyway, that'll be ready to plane in about 30 minutes. Okay, so come time to glue these up. I generally take this one, this is the top part, I just put some glue around the little tabs here, those four corners with this glue, and then I'll set it on there, and then that's kind of a tack. And then all the four pieces build into it and glue into it, so it's a solid piece when it's all done. Got my four sides and my spacer. This goes on the bottom before the bottom spacer tab goes on. So let me go ahead and get that glued on. And what I do is I step it down there. It just almost snaps in there. Put it in flush. Just goes in there like that. And then I wipe a little bit of glue around it with a brush and then spray it with that, and that locks it in place. Okay, once I hit it with around to that, just around the edges, and of course I wiped away the part that keeps it held out so that it's just kind of smooth. Now I'll go wrap around it and start with 5 right here and just go on around it. I do keep this box right here as a model, and then I tip it and just double check it because once it's glued on there, it's a done deal. So it's good to make one of these and then have one to look at. All right, put that on there. It held it for about 10 seconds after I sprayed the fast cap accelerator on there. This is 4. It just glues in there. It's just a butt joint, goes all around it. Again, I put the glue right here on this, and then any of these parts that tie into the top and these sides, I'll put glue right here. Okay, gave it a shot, put it on there. Held it for about 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then it's good to go. I'm going to put 3 on there. This is 4. So 2 is the next one that goes in. And just look at it, line it up, and away we go. So there's 4, and then 2. And everything's up, and it's got to stay together on it. So let me get that done. Of course, the next one's 1 up, and put that like that. Turn that around, make sure my slots all line up. It goes in there. And on the full length ones, I line them up to this because that's what's right on it. And that way you don't have to really know too much about it. And this whole box will get sanded lightly before it goes in the other box. So let's get that one glued on. Okay, got that one on there. The box is pretty well glued up. Now I put the spacer on and make sure that the slots line up. And I pretty well put it just right in there where it's not going to interfere on any of these slots, the slots. So let me get that glued on. And that's just a face glue. I'll glue all the way around the edge, maybe put a dot in there. It may be just, on this case, it's just a hair higher. So, but that outside is going to be glued up and it'll be tight. All right, that one's glued. It's got spray on there, so I'll put the glue on the bottom of that one. Line it up, put it right on there like that. So we'll put the glue on that. Okay, once that's done, I'll go around it and put a little bit in all these little guys, anything that's got a little bit of a gap in it, just to lock it in and make sure it's good and tight. And then this all will get sanded on the outside just a little bit. So let me go ahead and get that done and get it sprayed down. Okay, I'm on my 2.5 day deals there. I figured these cost 3 hours per dice to make the other day. And I'll probably shave a little bit off that just because I've been doing some batch work, and but you know, with snafus and broken bits and just different having to do things up, it takes some time. Basically, right now, got all my boxes glued up. I still have to sand the slides and custom fit up. I've got almost 4 of these already cut out, and I have 8 more to cut. Well, 5 of them, I guess. 5 of them also come out with another 7 to cut, and because I'm making 12. But anyway, so right now I'm just lasering the hint on the bottom of all of these because that stays the same, and that's what that's in. I just dropped them into that, and what this says, hint 1 to 6, 6 to 1. What is first can go last. What is last can go first. Make a list. Tap the stars to close. Follow the moon to open. So that's your hints, and on these boxes, they're I've put a star and a moon on them, just to make them just a little more helpful to open. But there's your moon and there's your star. So if you just want to hand something to them and they don't have a desk to work it off of, they can tip towards the star, or tip towards the moon, and that will still activate all of those. Anyway, I started putting these together this morning, or this afternoon, I guess it was, and gluing them up. So it took me a few hours to do that. It's about 4 in the afternoon, and going to town. Time to load up another laser, get them done, and then we'll finish cutting the boxes and putting them in. So let's get that done. All right, getting her milled down now to the tedious part of sanding. Basically, these boxes, after the initial cleanup, I haven't really done any sanding to them. So what I use this machine here, and what I'm doing is I'm sanding lightly, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and just keep rotating it. And then after I get the top cleaned up, then I just concentrate on the side, because that's what it is. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and just keep rotating it around. And I put it in for end, and 1, 2, 3, and basically what that's doing is just squaring the sanding up all the way around it. And I mean, they look pretty ragged right now, but once they're cleaned up and sanded like that, they look really nice. And it makes all your pockets about the same thickness. And then the litmus test is to get it into the jig. So it needs to just pop it in one of the blocks. And I'm just holding that together with fans because I haven't cut the tops yet. But basically I'll sand that. And then these, just going over it with the 320 grit. All I'm doing is going over all the edges and just smoothing it up. And you can feel the difference, of course, when the 320 hits it immediately. But I go over every edge, every tip, and clean it up so that the slides are silky smooth. And this gets kind of heavy after a while, so I'll do one of them, then I'll sand that, and then rotate it up, because these things can really get on your head whenever you're holding them. I need to get some 320 for that one, and because that one is so much lighter. Anyway, there we go. Let's get back to sanding. All right. You noticed in my previous video I had a longer bit in there, cutting the first box joints, and those things are really tight. I put a different 1/8 inch bit in there, and it must be a hair bigger than the other ones, which I didn't really notice that so much on the end mills, but there is a difference in them, because this is proof. These fit together just like I want them to. The other one's just a hair tight. So the other end mills are supposed to have been a 1/8 inch, but anyway, they were just a hair under it. I don't know what the deal is. They were new. They're all new, so they all cut the same. But anyway, one other thing I did is I took the 23 gauge pin nail, and I put a couple little pins in here each side of the word, so that these don't pop up. I've had one of them pop up, and that's all you need is, after all this much work, is the carbon and everything, have one of them come up and have a bit go across the front of it. So, and you can't hardly see these the pin nails once they're taken out. And anyway, so there we go. That's getting ready to cut the box joints out now. It's days like this when I'm working right next to the CNC machine, doing sanding, and then coming over here and feeding these panels into the CNC. And I'm doing, 12 of them. So it takes me a while to get all that sanding and everything done. So I'm sitting out here in the shop for a couple of days, and I'm listening to this CNC, go away. And it's not like I can get away from it very far. So I'm thinking maybe I will build another box out of some 1/2 inch foam, and put some foam ribs on here, and extend this out another 1/2 inch all the way around it with a dead air zone in it, and put that over, just slip it on there to see how much of a difference it makes. I'll put my plexiglass windows back in so that I can see what's going on with it. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking, and I think it will probably cut down some more of the noise, so we'll just see. When I first make these and glue them together, they won't fit down in there. I mean, they might start, some of the parts would, but as it is, there's just a little bit of variance in them as you put them together. And so that's why I have to run them and sand them on here and take about 1/16 inch off each side. And that's just basically smoothing up all the little edges, and it makes it all fit, and then it just slips in there like a glove. So that's the reason for that. Well, kind of funny, but this is a 1/8 inch bit. It's a little bit smaller than that bit that I've got in there, and I'm thinking I've got a 3/16 inch bit loaded up in there that I've happened on by mistake, I didn't realize I had a 3/16 bit, but apparently I have one. And cutting out these joints, it makes putting these boxes together a whole lot easier. Or if this was a 1/8" bit, I was thinking, man, I mean, I can get it together, but it's so tight that I'm going to be, tapping it with a mallet and stretching those joints. So, note to self, buy some 3/16" bits, set it up with a 1/8" bit, but, there's room in there for a glue joint. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm kind of liking this stuff. It's a whole lot easier than what I'm dealing with on this other situation. So that was always a pain with trying to make sure that they fit. On a 4" plywood, you can get them together no problem. The hardwood, it can take a little bit more. But anyway, you may want to try a 3/16" bit instead of an 1/8" bit. This is an 1/8". I've got a 3/16" and they're cutting them, and it made putting them boxes together like piece of cake. So what I know that once they're tight enough that the glue joint is going to hold them together just fine. So there we go. All right, I mixed a little walnut with some white oak and give it contrasting colors. There's another one over there. I haven't finished on it. I haven't sanded them. So, but anyway, I'm going to have some pine and some cedar going together and mix and match. Got my 12 boxes sanded. They all fit down inside the box and should be good to go. So send them together just fine. I've got, looks like 4 more over here to run through the process of engraving and box joints, and I'm probably going to make those a little bit different mix, so I've got to change those up just a little bit. Alright, I'm milling some of these up for the family for one of the dice boxes, and there's 6 of them, and that's that one, so let's get another one loaded up. Alright, I'm getting ready to go ahead and put my slides in for my top pieces. It'll put a notch in there and do that, so I've got 12 of them to do. Remember to put the face down. I'll run the 1/8" bit on there with a as a T cutter, and then I'll run it with the T cutter, and then I'll cut the notch. Or cut the notch first and then the T cutter. Anyway, so that's kind of how that works, and should go down about right there, and get that done. So let's get her done. All right, using some just regular door wedges, you can kind of shim it up to the right height. This is to keep the edges down. These are the friction fit. Of course, the plywood is keeping it from shifting. So I pretty well have it nailed down as far as not moving anywhere. And this is a test piece. I'm gonna go ahead and run the parts on that, and then see how she works, and then I'll get the rest of them going on here. All right, to keep from having to run this and changing a whole bunch of bits, I'm gonna just batch these out. And basically what I'm going to do is run on this outside box slots. I'll run A, B, and then I'll run those, and then the last one I'll put as the T slots, and then I'll put in the B, because I should be able to pull them out easily, and I can do that faster than a bit change. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, what I'm doing is batch producing these. The cams with the popsicle stick, they don't move the cams as much with this little inanimate object in there. It takes the friction and keeps it from moving. It helps. It doesn't do it perfectly, but it does mostly. This is just a washer for a hold down, and I've got one here, but I'm not really needing it, so I don't really care about it. This is a prime example why I don't like using any attachments on above my table very far, because bam, depending on where that thing is and you start it, it'll come zipping across there. So, you know, maybe not all the best practices, but that's what I found with work and stuff. I keep all this stuff down below and use brass wherever I can save blades. So there you go. So let's see what we got now. And this is what this process is doing. It's going down here. It's basically putting a relief cut for the keyhole slot that's going to go in there. And then this is the notch for the little deadbolt. And so when I get done with this, I'll run the keyhole slot and then I'll run the cutout. And it'll run down through there and it'll cut both of them out after I put the keyhole slot in there. So here we go. Alright, if you use a 1/8 inch bit, they go together, but you'll have to tap them a little bit with a mallet, especially the hardwoods. Plywood just has no issue at all going together. The softwoods, they go together pretty easy, but the hardwoods, you got to kind of tap them a little bit. Again, I use a 3/16 inch bit instead of the 1/8 inch bit. And I'm over here in the process of running these. Let me run the pocket on this one here. And run B. That'll run a whole 24 seconds. Got that little pocket out. There's my stack is already completed. There's my stack of uncompleted. The process of this part, I think in my original I had figured it took about 30 minutes by the time you did the bit changes, but I'm batching it out a little bit and doing that. So saving me the time on batching it. I have to slow this whole process down. The 1/8 inch bit, I'm cutting almost probably quarter deep. But by slowing it down and setting, it's doing that. That's the same key or the keyhole slot that the bit that it's running. And all that's doing is again cutting the relief of that keyhole slot so it doesn't have to cut quite as much. Alright. This one's got one of my other ones over there. This is what happens when your collar loses a bit. Drops down in, destroys quite a bit of work. So that'll go into the trash here in a little bit. Because it's going to be the other pieces in there working. And I don't have the guts for that, but we'll use it as just a... Okay, the keyhole slot when it's, when it's making the relief for the keyhole, it takes it at 1 minute 12 seconds. So the T-slot will, keyhole slot will also take 1 minute 12 seconds. So, you know, this takes about 2 minutes to do this, and it's really not enough to get away and do too much. You can kind of go over and look at something and think about it and then come back over. But if you're sanding, you might go get something done, but not a lot of time, so you're having to keep moving stuff. Alright, getting ready for the T slot. There's my 12 blanks. I got one of my walnut pieces in there to experiment with. Let's see how good a job. I've laid it out. You do go to jigging these up. Always jig them the same. I always put this one in first and put the two sides in and then shim it down. That way my space is always up against this side here. And anyway, so let's let it rip, see what happens. Okay, it's never a bad idea to test, make sure that if you think what you're doing is right. Put my little oak in there and slides, so it's in there fine. I'm gonna go ahead and mill the rest of these T-slots, and then I'll mill them all with the 1/8 inch, so I'm not changing a whole bunch of bits. Let's get her done. All right, what's the advantages of making it, milling it with the 3/16 inch bit? You don't stress these joints out when you're popping them apart. They go together, but you know, it's like it will generally break something off and have to super glue it back on. So, you know, like right there when I was beating them apart, I've got this one here I'm gonna have to fix, and that one I'm gonna have to fix, where all these, they just slip together, and if you use a wide gap type glue, there's no fight. And anyway, there you go. Now that I've got the keyholes all slotted in and all of these, there's 12 of them there, probably 13 I think, maybe 12. But anyway, that's all done. Now I've got to put the 1/8 inch bit in there and go through there and cut out this slide. That's will be up to not quite to that corner, but it'll go up to that corner. And if you look at this, there's a little bit of a hole in there that'll keep that sawdust from giving you some real issues whenever you slide the slide in. That's just by chance. But anyway, when you cut this off, it'll be about 1/4 inch, maybe about 3/8 of an inch away from the fingers there. So anyway, I'm kind of learning my lesson on using the 3/16 inch bit versus the 1/8 inch bit. And you know, I remember buying that thing several years ago, and I never have used it until I had broken my other bits. And I got down there and I pulled that out of there and it wasn't marked, and so I used it by mistake. But anyway, the 1/8 inch cutting the box joints, they're tight, and you'll break ears off of it. With this one, they're still pretty tight, and you don't break all the ears off trying to get them together. So upsize that to a 3/16 when you're cutting the box joints out for this. The rest of them, just use your 1/8 inch bit because they're small. But okay, all loaded up. I'm going to run the C profile, which is the profile to cut out the top out of it, I'm hoping. And there you go. You know, after a couple weeks or a month goes by, designing these couple months, just to go, well, I wonder which one it is. So anyway, sometimes I have to go back and look at the deal, or just run it on a sample. But I'm pretty sure that's it, because I've written it down as A, B, and C, and A and B was perfect. C will probably just fine. I could combine A and B so that I don't have to hit the button again, but it's a different operation. So anyway. Okay, once that cuts that, I go ahead and slide the slides in just to keep them in spot, keep the door with the right one, and that keeps them together and they stay together and works better. Okay, first thing I do when I get ready to glue these up is I put paste wax on the grooves with just some Munex, and on this very butt end, anywhere that there would be glue at. And then these pieces here, pull them out, and I run glue down through that. And then I slide that in there before it all sets up so that it makes a nice, good connection. Okay, well, that's assembling the boxes. I've got 6 more to do. I did 2 for the gift this weekend, and 2 for for my in-laws. And so I've got those mixed up. I did forget one top, so I had to run it back through the mill machine real quick, and got that done. So I still got these 6 outer boxes to get together, and I'll probably do them here in a little bit. Right now I'm going to sweep up, take a little break from the stuff, and let my clamps dry up. It takes 30 minutes for them to dry, so I'll let them sit for a little bit, and then I'll have clamps for the next set of 6. Okay, I've got 4 Germans made, 2 Rangers. Got to assemble another 6 Rangers. Got my clamps set up. I sprayed over them with some 2P10, and that just kind of solidifies, makes everything tight. They've been clamped for 30 minutes, so they're good. Anyway, in colder temperatures, that accelerator makes them glue up pretty good. And so there we go. So let's get busy putting the rest of these together. All right, process of sanding all those off, of course, is hitting the sander there and just going around it, sanding the rust spots off of it. And then that's got like a 30 grit paper on it, maybe 40 grit. And then after I get it to where it's just about flush, then I'll bring it over here and I'll hit the orbital, start off with some 40, 60, 80, go to 120, 180, and then 220, and run it through that. Also pre-drill the holes in the box lid and reattach that with some brass screws. Put the lid on there so it stays together while we're sanding on it. And definitely want to pre-drill that hole because it's right next to the edge and it will crack if you don't do that. Anyway, so that's kind of what we've been doing. These are 2 that are sanded smooth, and you know they're good to the touch, and they've been sanded with 220. So I'm going to shoot them with some lacquer and get them ready to go, and then I'll put the kits in the inside of them that make them unlock and lock, and that's them over there underneath those 2 belts. So there we go. There's the process. All right, I'm finally down to finishing. I'm talking you through a breather, and I'm using just some clear lacquer satin finish, a mineral wax. I've got the brushing lacquer, and which is the same stuff, but it's this bottom because I was wanting to get these two boxes together for tomorrow night. So I'll get them together. I'll get us put the insides to them, and hopefully they'll come up running. Here are the rest of the boxes. These four for my wife's family. They haven't been sanded yet. And these are 6 or 7 Ranger boxes, plus the 2. So there you go. And we're getting there. And having a lot of fun doing it. So those boxes should just slip in there, and up she'll come a running, I hope. So there we go. My sanding station looks a little bit busy right now. I just picked up one of the Hercules 5 amp sanders, and along with my plethora of every other kind. So I've got one of every makes, and each one of them does a fine job. But anyway, with these things, you start off with this one up here and move on through the grits. So as you can see, I'm going to be doing a lot of sanding. So I went ahead and bought me a dust respirator. Last night I sanded without one. I thought, well, I got it covered. I have this thing up here filtering the air in the evening, or the breathable air, and then I have the dust collector on the biggest part and dust collector on this biggest part. So the other one's really fine. But I woke up this morning with a little bit of sore throat from the walnut, and I thought, well, okay, I need to up my game, and so I went and got me another mask from Harbor Freight, and I found out that it's the same mask that I've been spraying finishes with. So this is a good mask, and it's medium size for me, and it does a good job. It blocks the smells and the dust, and it works good. So there we are. Hopefully I'll have these 2 boxes ready to roll tomorrow. All right, it's time to put the box in there. All these boxes have been machined down so that they'll slip down inside that cavity. No problem. They'll all go down in there, and 3 would be up, and the cavity would be right here where that little socket is there. This little socket lines up with that, and they'll fit down in there. The only thing is I need my slides to go in there, and depending on the box, I have to fine-tune each one of these to where they clear. And you might notice that that's just a little bit thin on my sanding, so I got a little carried away on that box on the sanding, and my recess is that. So the way of fixing that will be, because you'll need to take a piece of plywood like this and make sure that the slide slides up and down and back and forth with that side on there, and and that they fit, and then the ends of them fit as well. So this is yeah, there you go. Drop it right off the bat. Anyway, so that's the process you go on. These are the last things. They've all been kind of pre-sanded, but they'll need a little bit of adjusting because it's all dependent really on these things. And whenever you put your slides in, like one up here, you want this to slide back and forth like that. And if there's any other movement, and you also want it to clear the sides of your pocket. And if it doesn't clear, so the way to test that is just to simply take it like this, and the slide should slide back and forth in there with that on there. And if it doesn't, you need to adjust the sides and get it to where you do that. So I've left those long, and I just generally will adjust them just a little bit. Generally will hit that with real quick. Now this is like an 80 grit bit, and it's spun the thing that crossed there, took a little height off my finger. So yeah, we're not going to do that. I'm going to make a little template where I can run them through the sander if I need to thin them up a little bit, like on this one. The rest of them are pretty good. I picked the worst one out, as far as this angle right here not being a 1/4 inch, which is my mistake. I was getting carried away with that, but they should be about a 1/4 inch, and it's not too much work to trim these down and get them. If I come to it, I could take a piece of 3/16 inch plywood and run them down and just cut some new ones to sand them, but this way it'll work the same way either way. So let me get that tuned and get one together. All right, well, we're down to the fine tuning stages, and basically I'm just taking all the parts. This is the fine tuning where I adjust each one of these on this box first. I go through them and I make sure that the slides will slide with the lid on the top of that, so that they all slide in and out, and that these will not interfere with the other slides that are going around it. So once I get that done, which that takes a little while to do that, get that done, then I will fine tune the box lid just a little bit. You know, I'll sand it with a little bit of with a file and a piece of sandpaper. I mean, it's pretty tight, but I want it a little bit slighter, and then I'll hit it with a little bit of lube. And I made this sanding jig. This other box here is a sanding jig, and basically it's just a cutout from the CNC machine. I glued it to the board, and they sit in here so that I can fine tune them, sand them down a little bit if they're a little bit thinner than the walls of the jig here. So I'm hoping I don't have to do that on every one of them. If I do, I will probably wishing that I had not cut them out, and I would have went to a thinner piece of material. But anyway, this works, and the reason them are probably just a hair thinner, these boxes, is because I sanded them down to fit this box, which these are a 1/16 of an inch thinner all the way around for the box joints, and so they're a 1/2 inch box, but they're a 1/16 of an inch narrow to the inside, which made this just a hair tighter. So that was my own fault in using the bigger bit. Every time you trade something out on one of these steels and go with a little bit of a change, it'll get you down the road. So anyway, let me adjust these and get them going. But this little jig right here with the sand machine, I just load them up there and send them through and sand them down to thickness. So either way, I've got it. So I'm just fine tuning and getting them going. All right, well, after about an hour and a half of sanding, I put it like an 80 grit on that, got all my box joints down, got them fairly smooth. I mean, they were close. And then I came back and put a 120 bit on there and sanded that. And then I'll go over that with 220, or probably about an 80 grit orbital, and then over a couple other orbitals, get them smoothed up, and then they'll be ready for the final adjustment. This worked out good. I was able to just sand them parts in there as I wanted to. All that is just a cut off from out of the trash dumpster, and the jigs that the cards were. Cards, they come in pretty close. You still have to tweak them a little bit. But there's our 2 boxes. These are going as prizes and gifts tonight. They have our Ranger code on them, and then of course on the bottom of them there's a hint for those that want to read the hints. Most people, they just want to sit there and play with it, but there's a hint on the inside of that. And after you put all the components in there, they weigh a little bit of weight. I mean, they're fairly clean, fairly ready. And I put the moons and the stars on them, so follow the moons or follow the stars. And the moon was kind of an afterthought, last minute thought. It ain't quite working out the way I thought it would be as in practice, as most stuff does, but it kind of put a little bit different design on them, and it was easy to do. So I may end up moving them around just a little bit more to make them a little more user friendly. And so anyway, so there they are. They're ready to go.